What up, everyone? This is Mr. Lord, Dr. Professor, Dark Joker, with another edition of Where, Pick, and Dare, where I pick games for the various games that are occurring tomorrow. Whether it's football, baseball, basketball, basically whatever games I want to pick, I will pick them. With all that being said, on with the video. College men's basketball. St. Louis Billikens versus Michigan Wolverines. This is part of the second round of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Um, St. Louis has a 16.9% chance to win. Michigan's a 83.1% chance to win. This game's in Buffalo, New York, so not really home field advantage for either team, but there might be more Michigan fans there than St. Louis fans. So St. Louis is a 9 seed, 29-5 record. Michigan's a 1 seed, 32-3 record. For stats, St. Louis has more points per game, points against. Field goal percentage is even. St. Louis has more rebounds per game. Michigan has more assists per game, blocks per game. St. Louis has more steals per game. These stats are pretty close. I mean, given the competition that Michigan has gone against, and with their having more wins, less losses, having significantly higher percent chance to win, I think Michigan will beat St. Louis tomorrow. Louisville Cardinals versus Michigan State Spartans. This is part of the second round of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Um, Louisville's a 51% chance to win. Michigan State's a 49% chance to win. This game's in Buffalo, New York. Louisville is a 6 seed, 24-10 record. Michigan State's a 3 seed, 26-7 record. For stats, Louisville has more points per game, points against. Field goal percentage is even. Michigan State has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and Louisville has more steals per game. These stats are pretty close. I mean, yeah, so the stats with the biggest differences, with points per game, that one's a 5.4 difference, and points against is a 4.0 difference. So, yeah, those are very close. And this could be a good game with most of the stats favoring Michigan State. I think Michigan State will beat Louisville tomorrow. TCU Horned Frogs versus Duke Blue Devils. This is part of the second round of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. TCU has an 8.9% chance to win. Duke has a 91.1% chance to win. This game is in Greenville, South Carolina, so definitely a closer game for Duke than it is for TCU. TCU is a 9 seed, 23-11 record. Duke is a 1 seed, 33-2 record. So for stats, Duke has more points per game. TCU has more points against. Duke has a higher field goal percentage and has more rebounds per game, assists per game. TCU has more blocks per game, and Duke has more steals per game. These stats are pretty close. So I think home field advantage is going to be a big thing here. So I think Duke will beat TCU tomorrow. Texas A&M Aggies versus Houston Cougars. This is part of the second round of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. A&M has an 18.7% chance to win. Houston has an 81.3% chance to win. This game is in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, so not really home field advantage for either team. A&M is a 10 seed, 22-11 record. Houston's a 2 seed, 29-6 record. For stats, A&M has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage, more rebounds per game, assists per game. Houston has more blocks per game, and A&M has more steals per game. The only stat that's really a big difference here is points against. That one's a 16.3 difference in favor of Houston. So yeah, with that, and the other stats are pretty close. With that big of a difference in points and defensive gap, I think Houston will beat Texas A&M tomorrow. Texas Longhorns versus Gonzaga Bulldogs. This is part of the second round of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Texas is a 25.2% chance to win. Gonzaga is a 74.8% chance to win. This game is in Portland, Oregon. So definitely, a closer game for Gonzaga than it is for Texas. Now, I don't know how much that matters. Because I can't also say how big Gonzaga's fan base is compared to Texas. So Texas is an 11 seed, 20-14 record. Gonzaga is a 3 seed, 31-3 record. For stats, Gonzaga's more points per game. Texas is more points against. Gonzaga has a higher field goal percentage and has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. The only stat that's really a big difference here is points against. That one's a 10.4 difference in favor of Gonzaga. So, the other stats are pretty close. So I think with the defensive gap, I think Gonzaga will beat Texas tomorrow. VCU Rams versus Illinois Fighting Illini. This is part of the second round of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. VCU is a 17.6% chance to win, and Illinois is an 82.4% chance to win. This game is in Greenville, South Carolina, so not really a close game for either team. So VCU is an 11 seed, 28-7 record. Illinois is a 3 seed, 25-8 record. For stats, Illinois is more points per game. VCU is more points against. Field goal percentage is even. Illinois is more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and VCU is more steals per game. These stats are pretty close, with most of these stats favoring Illinois. I think Illinois will beat VCU tomorrow. Vanderbilt Commodores versus Nebraska Cornhuskers. This is part of the second round of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Vandy is a 53.2% chance to win. Nebraska is a 46.8% chance to win. This game is in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, so not really a close game for either team. So no home field advantage. Vandy's a 5 seed, 27-8 record. Nebraska is a 4 seed, 27-6 record. First stats, Vandy has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage, more rebounds per game. Nebraska has more assists per game. Vandy has more blocks per game and steals per game. These stats are pretty close, with most of the stats favoring Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt will beat Nebraska tomorrow. High Point Panthers versus Arkansas Razorbacks. This is part of the second round of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. So High Point is a 21.2% chance to win. Arkansas is a 78.8% chance to win. This game is in Portland, Oregon. So High Point's a 12 seed, 31-4 record. Arkansas is a 4 seed, 27-8 record. So for stats, Arkansas has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage. High Point has more rebounds per game. Arkansas has more assists per game, blocks per game, and High Point has more steals per game. These stats are pretty close, with most of the stats favoring Arkansas. I think Arkansas will beat High Point tomorrow. College women's basketball. Howard Bison versus Ohio State Buckeyes. This is part of the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Howard is a 1% chance to win. Ohio State is a 99% chance to win. This game is at Ohio State. Howard's a 14 seed, 26-7 record. Ohio State's a 3 seed, 26-7 record. For stats, Ohio State has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage. Howard has more rebounds per game. Ohio State has more assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. The only stat that's really a big difference here is points per game. That one's a 14.8 difference in favor of Ohio State. The other stats are pretty close. So with the home field advantage and the points per game advantage, I think Ohio State will beat Howard tomorrow. Vermont Catamounts versus Louisville Cardinals. This is part of the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Vermont has a 2.5% chance to win, and Louisville's a 97.5% chance to win. This game is at Louisville. So Vermont's a 14 seed, 27-7 record. Louisville's a 3 seed, 27-7 record. For stats, Louisville is more points per game, points against. Field goal percentage is even. Louisville is more rebounds per game, assists per game. Vermont is more blocks per game, and Louisville is more steals per game. The only stat that's really a big difference here is points per game. That one's a 14.1 difference in favor of Louisville. The other stats are pretty close. So, with the home field advantage and with the points per game advantage, I think Louisville will beat Vermont tomorrow. Southern Jaguars versus South Carolina Gamecocks. This is part of the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Southern is a 1% chance to win. South Carolina is a 99% chance to win. This game is at South Carolina. So Southern's a 16 seed, 20-13 record. South Carolina's a 1 seed, 31-3 record. First stats, South Carolina has more points per game. Southern has more points against. South Carolina has a higher field goal percentage and has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and Southern has more steals per game. The only stats that really big difference here are points per game and field goal percentage. For points per game, that one's a 24.3 difference in favor of South Carolina, and field goal percentage is a 13% difference in favor of South Carolina. The other stats are pretty close. So with the field goal percentage advantage, points per game advantage, and home field advantage, I think South Carolina will beat Southern tomorrow. Virginia Cavaliers versus Georgia Bulldogs. This is part of the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Virginia is a 45.1% chance to win. Georgia is a 54.9% chance to win. This game is in Iowa City, Iowa, so not really home field advantage for either team. Virginia is a 10 seed, 20-11 record. Georgia is a 7 seed, 22-9 record. For stats, Virginia has more points per game, points against. Georgia has a higher field goal percentage. Virginia has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. With most of these stats favoring Virginia, I think Virginia will beat Georgia tomorrow. Fairfield Stags versus Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This is part of the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Fairfield has a 14.1% chance to win. Notre Dame has an 85.9% chance to win. This game is in Columbus, Ohio. Fairfield's an 11 seed, 28-4 record. Notre Dame's a 6 seed, 22-10 record. For stats, Notre Dame has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage, more rebounds per game. Fairfield has more assists per game. Notre Dame has more blocks per game and steals per game. These stats are pretty close. With most of these stats favoring Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame will beat Fairfield tomorrow. James Madison Dukes versus Kentucky Wildcats. This is part of the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. James Madison is a 13.5% chance to win. Kentucky is a 6.5% chance to win. This game is in Morgantown, West Virginia, so not really home field advantage for either team. James Madison's a 12 seed, 26-8 record. Kentucky's a 5 seed, 23-10 record. For stats, Kentucky has more points per game. James Madison has more points against. Field goal percentage is even. James Madison has more rebounds per game. Kentucky has more assists per game, blocks per game. James Madison has more steals per game. These stats are pretty close. With with the competition that Kentucky goes against, and with with the way these stats are, they seem to most of them seem to favor Kentucky. So I think Kentucky will beat James Madison tomorrow. Rhode Island Rams versus Alabama Crimson Tide. This is part of the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Rhode Island's an 18% chance to win, and Bama has an 82% chance to win. This game is at Louisville, Kentucky. Rhode Island's an 11 seed, 28-4 record. Bama's a 6 seed, 23-10 record. First stats: Bama has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage. Rhode Island has more rebounds per game. Bama has more assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. With most of these stats favoring Alabama, I think Alabama will beat Rhode Island tomorrow. UTSA Roadrunners versus Yukon Huskies. This is part of the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. UTSA has a 1% chance to win, and UConn's a 99% chance to win. This game is, at UConn. UTSA is a 16 seed, 18-15 record. UConn's a 1 seed, 34-0 record. First stats: UConn has more points per game. UTSA has more points against. UConn has a higher field goal percentage. UTSA has more rebounds per game. UConn has more assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. The stats that are a big difference here are points, field goal percentage, and assists. So for points, it's a 28.8 difference in favor of UConn. Field goal percentage, it's a 14% difference in favor of UConn. And for assists, it's a 10.3 difference in favor of UConn. So with those advantages, along with the home field advantage, I think UConn will beat UTSA tomorrow. USC Trojans versus Clemson Tigers. This is part of the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. USC is a 76.2% chance to win, and Clemson is a 23.8% chance to win. This game is at Columbia, South Carolina, so it's definitely a home field advantage for Clemson, even though it's at their in-state rivals stadium. So USC is a 9 seed, 17-13 record. Clemson's an 8 seed, 21-11 record. First stats: USC has more points per game, points against. Clemson's a higher field goal percentage. USC has more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. These stats are pretty close, so I think home field advantage is going to be a big thing here. So I think Clemson will beat USC tomorrow. Farley Dickinson Knights versus Iowa Hawkeyes. This is part of the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. FDU has a 2% chance to win. Iowa has a 98% chance to win. This game is in Iowa City, Iowa, so it's definitely a home field advantage for Iowa. So, yeah, so FDU is a 15 seed, 30-4 record. Iowa is a 2 seed, 26-6 record. For stats, Iowa has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage. FDU is more rebounds per game. Iowa is more assists per game. FDU is more blocks per game, and Iowa is more steals per game. Yeah, so the only stat that's really big difference here is points against. That one's a 13.9 difference in favor of FDU. The other stats are pretty close, and that defensive gap is going to cause some problems. So, with that defensive, and even though this is at Iowa, home field advantage will help here. I mean, really, I don't really hear. I've never heard of Farley Dickinson really until this tournament. So with that defensive gap, I think that will affect things. So I think Farley Dickinson will beat Iowa tomorrow. Miami, Ohio, Redhawks versus West Virginia Mountaineers. This is part of the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Miami, Ohio is a 3.8% chance to win. West Virginia is a 96.2% chance to win. This game is at West Virginia. So Miami, Ohio is the 13 seed, 28-6 record. West Virginia's 4 nation, 27-6 record. First stats, West Virginia's more points per game. Miami, Ohio's more points against. West Virginia's more higher field goal percentage. It has more rebounds per game. Miami, Ohio is more assists per game, blocks per game, and West Virginia's more steals per game. These stats are pretty close, so I think home field advantage is going to be a big thing here. So I think West Virginia will beat Miami, Ohio tomorrow. Syracuse Orange versus Iowa State Cyclones. This is part of the first round of the NCAA women's tournament. Syracuse has a 36.2% chance to win. Iowa State has a 63.7% chance to win. This game is Storrs, Connecticut. So Syracuse is a 9 seed, 23-8 record. Iowa State's an 8 seed, 22-9 record. First stats, Iowa State has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage. Syracuse has more rebounds per game. Iowa State has more assists per game. Syracuse has more blocks per game and steals per game. These stats are pretty close. Uh, yeah, I mean, like Syracuse, I don't know if their fan base is big enough to have an effect. I mean, I mean, the game's location is closer to, I'm sure it's closer to them than it is to Iowa. So like it could do a good game tomorrow. So I think with most of the stats favoring with most of the stats favoring Syracuse, I think Syracuse will beat Iowa State tomorrow. High Point Panthers versus Vanderbilt Commodores. On this part of the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament, High Point is a 1.2% chance to win. Vandy is a 98.8% chance to win. This game is at Vanderbilt. High Point's a 15 seed, 27-5 record. Vandy's a 2 seed, 27-4 record. For stats, Vandy has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage. High Point has more rebounds per game. Vandy has more assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. The only stat that's really a big difference here is points per game. That one's a 10.5 difference in favor of Vanderbilt. Yeah, so yeah, with the home field advantage and points per game advantage, I think Vanderbilt will beat High Point tomorrow. Princeton Tigers versus Oklahoma State Cowboys. This is part of the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Princeton is a 38.8% chance to win. Oklahoma State is a 61.2% chance to win. This game's in Los Angeles, California, so not really a close game for either team. Princeton's a 9 seed, 26-3 record. Oklahoma State's a 8 seed, 23-9 record. First stats, Oklahoma State has more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage, more rebounds per game, assists per game. Princeton has more blocks per game, and Oklahoma State has more steals per game. These stats are pretty close. So yeah, so with most of these stats favoring Oklahoma State, I think Oklahoma State will beat Princeton tomorrow. Colorado Buffaloes versus Illinois, fighting Illini. This is part of the first round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Colorado's a 31.2% chance to win. Illinois is a 68.8% chance to win. This game is in Nashville, Tennessee. Colorado's a 10 seed, 22-11 record. Illinois is a 7 seed, 21-11 record. First stats, Illinois is more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage. Colorado's more rebounds per game. Illinois is more assists per game. Colorado's more blocks per game and steals per game. Stats are pretty close. So I think with most of the stats being in favor of Colorado, I think Colorado will beat Illinois tomorrow. California Baptist Lancers versus UCLA Bruins. This is part of the first round of the NCAA Women's Basketball Tournament. CBU has a 1% chance to win. UCLA is a 99% chance to win. This game is, at UCLA. So for stats, so CBU is a 16 seed, 23-10 record. UCLA is a 1 seed, 31-11 record. For stats, UCLA has more points per game. CBU has more points against. UCLA is a higher field goal percentage and has more rebounds per game, assists per game. CBU has more blocks per game and steals per game. These stats, so the stats is a really big difference here. You have points per game. That one's a 12.3 difference in favor of UCLA. And you have the field goal percentage. That one's a 10% difference in favor of UCLA. So with those advantages, along with the home field advantage, I think UCLA will beat CBU tomorrow. NBA. Los Angeles Lakers versus Orlando Magic. The Lakers have a 56.7% chance to win. The Magic have a 43.3% chance to win. This game is at Orlando. For injuries for the Lakers, Reeves and Kleber game time decisions, and for the Magic, Wagner, Isaac, and Black are out, and Carter Jr. is a game time decision. For stats, Lakers have more points per game, points against, higher field goal percentage. Magic have more rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and steals per game. These stats are pretty close, so I think home field advantage is going to be a big thing here. So I think the Magic will beat the Lakers tomorrow. Miami Heat versus Houston Rockets. The Heat have a 44.6% chance to win. The Rockets have a 55.4% chance to win. This game is at Houston. So for injuries, for the Heat, Fontecchio and Larson are game time decisions, and Jacquez Jr., Wiggins, and Rozier out. For Rockets, Tate, Adams, and Von Vliet are out. For stats, Heat have more points per game, points against. Rockets have a higher field goal percentage and have more rebounds per game. Heat have more assists per game. Rockets have more blocks per game. Heat have more steals per game. These stats are pretty close. Yeah. So with these stats being as close as they are, I think home field advantage is going to be a big thing here. So I think the Rockets will beat the Heat tomorrow. College baseball. NC State Wolfpack versus Florida State Seminoles. This is game 2 of the series. NC State's 10 nation, 18-4 record. Florida State's 11 nation, 17-4 record. This game's at Florida State. So yeah, so it's gonna be a really good game. I think with it being at Florida State, I think Florida State will beat NC State tomorrow. Georgia Bulldogs versus Texas A&M Aggies. The the Georgia is 7 nation, 19-4 record. A&M is 3 nation, 17-4 record. Yeah. So in game 1, the winner was Georgia. So Georgia's have won on the series. If they win, they clinch series. If A&M wins, the series is tied. Yeah. So with this game being at College Station, um, I think A&M will beat Georgia tomorrow. Wake Forest Demon Deacons versus Virginia Cavaliers. Um, yeah, so Wake Forest is a 24 in the nation, 16-6 record. Virginia's 9 nation, 19-4 record. This game is in Charlottesville. So definitely home field advantage for Virginia. So yeah, so with this being basically a home game for Virginia, I think Virginia will beat Wake Forest tomorrow. Texas Longhorns versus Auburn Tigers. Uh, Texas is 2 nation, 18-3 record. Auburn's 5 nation, 19-2 record. This game's at Auburn, Alabama. This could be a really good baseball game. Auburn won game 1, so if they win tomorrow, they clinch series. If Texas wins, Texas ties series. Then Sunday will be when the series is clinched. This could be a really good game. So I think with it being at Auburn, I think Auburn will beat Texas tomorrow. And that's it for picks. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my picks. Do you agree with them? Do you not? If you have different picks, you can put them in the comments. But other than that, please like, subscribe, and all that. Thank you for listening, and look forward to the next video.